10 years ago today, I'm at a hotel bar down the shore in Long Branch, New Jersey, sitting behind the bar, waiting for patrons to come in, for people to come in, order their drinks, making martinis, all types of cocktails and stuff. I turn on the TV, turn on the news. James Gandolfini dead, age whatever it was, 54, 45, whatever, 48, something like that, right? And what a loss to the acting world. And I'm just thinking of him today before we get to the news and the obvious stuff. But if you're a Sopranos fan like me, that is, I can't go a day without making a Sopranos reference. Like even today, my family and I went up to Ridgewood, where he was from, where he grew up. On the way back, what do we pass? The Bada Bing on the way back home. So it's like living in North Jersey, it's just something which is ubiquitous. It's everywhere up here. I miss him a lot. He must have been one of the best actors ever, man. Like when The Sopranos were on, it didn't feel like they were acting. It just felt it's such a tremendous series if you've never seen it. On the other hand, there's a lot that interests me in the Roma sphere right now. Wayne Gerard going to be breaking stuff down. It's a Monday night, 7 p.m. where I am, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So if you're watching this recorded or you're jumping in right now, leave a comment, leave a like straight away. That really helps this channel grow. So there's a lot of positives, actually, and those start off with the renewals. Let's take a look at what's going on, who has renewed, and actually who's come in, because we have a few players that have signed, one officially, one not so officially, a bunch of players still TBD to be determined on their way out. And I think we can start with our boy Bryan Cristante, and he resigns until 2027. This is a very good thing. So Cristante is one of those guys, a true professional, somebody you definitely want in the team. He is a guy who adds balance to the play. He's fundamental of that platform that Mourinho has instilled. He's a true player, our coach's player, in that he goes out and he puts the team above everything week in and week out. And that's what we really love about Cristante. He came a long way this season without saying anything more. I'm not going to say Cristante is Makelele or take whatever center defensive mid you want. That was world class. However, he definitely grew throughout the season, playing in a tandem, playing in that too. Not so much a pivot. I wouldn't call it a pivot. I think that that's something that people assume Mourinho's midfield is like, but instead he played a bit more anchored down with Matic, playing that zonal marking back and forth, and that takes a lot of concentration. It's not for every player, but the one thing that he will give this team, again, is continuity, and that the players can depend on him. They know what they've got behind them or in front of them. And even on the rotation, let's say he's not in the starting 11, because some games Cristante will not be in the start. He's still a great player that you want in your team. So let's take a little bit of a look at that deal before we hit the other stuff. Okay. So until June 30th, 2027, this extends, and this was announced today. And he says, Roma has become my second family. He says, I wanted to sign a new contract, and I'm really happy now that it's done. I'd like to thank the owners and the club for this extension. I've been here a few years now, and the privilege of witnessing the progress made by the team and the club firsthand. I'll carry on giving my all for the Giallorossi colors and for our fans. They're very demanding, but they give back more than they ask for. Then Pinto also commented on the extension, and he says, we are thrilled to be able to announce his contract renewal. Cristante has improved year on year and thoroughly deserved everything he has achieved, including the trophies he's won with Italy and Roma. Bryan has always put Roma's best interests before anything else and represents many of the key values we want to pass on to our young players, like professionalism and courage. I like that word courage there by Tiago Pinto. And I'm also reminded that when Italy won the Euro 2020 in 2021, that it was Cristante's header, the flick on, which Bonucci scored, and Italy go on to win in penalty kicks. Got a lot to thank Cristante for. A bit of a unsung hero in not just Roma, but also for the Azzurri when we look like that. And I want to use that as the segue to a part about the Azzurri today. So I'm going to take your screens for a second, and let's look at, what do we got? Let's look at Italy's U20 side. So Italy just made it to the U20 World Cup, and I'm also going to put a banner there, which this is the team that I think should be starting for the Azzurri right now. And you can see it right there as it pops up. So as we look back at this team, though, this U20 team, we've got a couple unfamiliar names and a couple which are familiar, I should say. So we got Giovanni Guarino, Aguilar di Torricchia. Then we have Faticanti, Roma player, Roma Primavera product. He's still with the Primavera right now. And then Prati, decent midfielder. Casadei, we'll be getting back to him. Baldanzi, who I've mentioned several times on this channel. And then Pafundi, who scored an incredible free kick, left-footed, number 10, if you want. He's very similar, his profile, to Baldanzi. And then Ambrosino in front of him there. So Casadei, and look at this formation that I put up for you in the banner, right? And we're looking at Donnarumma, of course, if we're going forward. Italy crash out of the UEFA Nations League. UEFA? Yeah, UEFA Nations League. And to me, this is such another example of why Mancini should probably step aside for the better of Italy, in that we see a repetitive lineup. The one that was used for the match against Spain. I should have had it here. Let's see. I'm gonna pull that up really quickly. And it's just one which reeks of the same I'm trying not to curse here. The same stuff over and over again. So look at this now. This was the starting formation going into the match against Spain. Acerbi, okay. Yeah, very good. Acerbi, great player. Should he still be in the Azzurri? He's getting older, man. I don't think so. Not as a starter. Bonucci? Definitely not. Definitely not. Toloi? I don't think so. I think it's time for a new cycle, and that you don't want to get those guys who are in between cycles. You want to start fresh. And I know you could be saying, if you're looking at that, my preferred starting lineup for the Azzurri, and say, okay, but what about Barella? Well, that's a different. I think that you need 1, 2, maybe 3 guys who can represent a core, who can take young players over the edge and be an example for them. But you don't want a full cast of characters who are in between generations. I don't think that's a good way forward for the Azzurri. Okay. Di Lorenzo, yes, for sure. Fratesi, yes. Jorginho, no, definitely not. 30 or over, Jorginho, not an impact player anymore. Not enough in his legs to cover the defense. I get it. You're a regista. You're that playmaker. That does not mean that you cannot get into the defensive side of play, that you cannot play zone, that you cannot slide tackle. And I don't see that from Jorginho anymore. This idea that every player who plays that way has to be like Pirlo and like a fine wine slinging balls all over, but then relatively little defensive work rate, defensive obligations. I don't buy that. And in modern day football, I don't see any of these players anymore. Everyone's got to be able to do a little bit. And I don't think that Jorginho holds his own weight. Spinazzola, another one of these guys. It's difficult to say that because he was, in my opinion, the MVP and won the most MVP or man of the match in Euro 2020. But this is another guy who I think that for the next wave should not be in the Azzurri lineup. Zaniolo, yeah, right. Please. Awful. Played awful. Immobile, surely not. Consistently struggles when wearing Azzurro blue. Not the Celeste that he often wears for Lazio. Different type of blue. But in Azzurro, it's not Immobile's game. You got to move on. Let's take a peek now at Spain's team. Rodri, Merino, Rodrigo, Gavi, Pino, Morata, Navas in the back, Laporte, Alba, Norman. It's okay. It's a decent team. Is it Spain from 2010? Heck no. Heck no. No. This is an okay side. And for Italy to get outplayed, what were the stats of this match? I think that Spain took it to them, whatever were the stats were as we're looking back. 63% possession, 37% possession by Italy. Mancini is not Mourinho. I know on this channel we always say, possession doesn't mean anything. But with the way that Mancini plays, it sure does at times when you can't control your own match and you're allowing 19 shots and 7 shots on target. What is this? Mancini's got to step aside for the sake of the Azzurri. I think Ranieri would be an excellent manager to come in and be that guy to get Italy into the next wave and to set a foundation and make something good. Because right now, this is not a way forward. This is behind. This is like over a year in the making at this point. Failed to qualify for the World Cup. That's are there words? Do I have to spell it out? Like, that's unacceptable, of course, for the nation. This is the second one in a row, right? If I'm not crazy, second World Cup in a row. Italy failed to qualify. Like, at this point, we need to do something drastic. You might be saying, well, Wayne, you're American. Yes. Yeah, but my background is Italian. And I feel the national team really strongly because I identify with them. I've grown up with these players, same way I did in 2006. So really feel strongly that it's time to move on. And let's analyze the lineup here. Let's take a look at this starting 11 that I posted, which I think is a way forward. So if we look back to the U20, I think maybe only one or two of these guys makes the lineups at this point. Even if you look on the bench for Italy, Pisili, decent player. Nothing too crazy there yet. So for me, it's Casadei and Baldanzi. So if you notice in the midfield there on your banner, I put Baldanzi as my mind's going. I put Casadei there for Barella because I think that this kid should be getting a shot. Plays in a midfield 3, is somebody who can progress the ball. He can cut in from the half spaces, not cut in from the wing, but like in the half spaces, he can turn his hips and start to play direct and then distribute from there. He's big. He's hard to control. So in many ways, I look at Casadei as the future of the Azzurri. I think he's the guy who will be this team's next captain, depending on what happens with Donnarumma, because he is so young. Sometimes I wonder if Donna had an early prime and if we've seen everything that we are going to see from him. But let's look at the rest of the team. One player wasn't called up here that you might notice. That's Mancini. I think it's got to be Mancini, Bastoni, and Scalvini. Those three. Stop it with Gatti and what's his name from Lecce? Barascolo, I want to say. That's not his. Bascarotti, right? The farmer. Like, that's not a player to go forward. We're not basing the Azzurri off this guy who had half a decent season. Is that what Italy has been dragged down to? I can't imagine, guys. I have to imagine Italy is worth more than that. And it's definitely worth what we see here, which is Mancini, who, in my opinion, is the top Italian center back at the moment across the board. Take Bonucci, whoever else is out there. Acerbi. For me, Mancini is the best Italian center back out there. We go on to Bastoni. Yeah, and Scalvini should rotate with him. Bastoni is exceptional. I love him. Parisi, who now is, of course, linked to Juventus. I think he should go to Roma, especially if Spinazzola goes, if Zalewski goes. But that's another story because there's another Brazilian that they were linked to today, which could be an interesting thing there. We've got Fratesi. Yeah, for sure. Tonali, Barella. That's my midfield 3. If it's do or die, those are my 3. You can throw Pellegrini in there just as well, but I think that he's got to find his rhythm on exactly where he's going to play. But it's probably somewhere like in Fratesi's role. Up ahead, Gnonto. Love Gnonto. I'm interested to see where he's going to go now that Leeds has been relegated. That's an interesting story. Up ahead, Scamacca, Retegui. They should fight it out and mix it up, get a string of games here and some friendlies, see who really connects better with the teammates around him. But Retegui already has a goal for Italy, a goal or two. And Scamacca is injured right now, or at least was injured for the most of, or at least half of the season with West Ham. So you don't know exactly how he's going to come back from that yet. On the left, Raspadori. In substitutes for these guys, Baldanzi surely should be in there, now linked to Napoli. So these guys from this Empoli side, which we've been talking about all season, are getting a lot of looks from top sides. We've got a couple of comments coming in here from Karim. Thank him for his comments. He says Fratesi is not a top midfielder. I think Karim, a lot of Italy will disagree with you. And don't forget Chiesa. Yeah, surely. I think Chiesa needs to be in there too. That's a good shout. I'm going to edit that real quick, and we'll put that instead of Raspadori there. We're going to put a little slash for Chiesa, and that's a brilliant call. I think that Chiesa can still do it. I think after his ACL tear, it's not over for him. I think he's still got a lot to give. Okay. So the other player who is signed today, let's move off of the Azzurri for a minute, is Chris Smalling. And one reason that this makes me super happy is we get one, continuity. Two, Chris Smalling is one of the better defenders, better center backs in Serie A, probably top 5. I would go ahead and say Chris Smalling is a top 5 center back in Serie A. So Roma get him for the remainder of his best years. And he's been a leader with Matic, with El Shaarawy, who is also set to sign on again for another contract extension, according to the powers that be of transfer journalism. But Smalling's re-signing is a great thing, because imagine if he didn't. Imagine if Smalling walks. Where does that leave Roma? Where does that leave Mourinho's back line? And I think it's in a bit of disarray. If he was to walk, then you're going to sign somebody to come in. Not going to be as good as Chris. Most likely not. You know, you get those diamonds in the rough, like how Kim, although Kim was highly rated, came over to Napoli and is now probably going to Manchester United. And instead, though, they can keep building. And Chris is such a good pro. He's a good locker room guy. He's good with the young guys, and he can add that confidence for the midfield. If Roma add another guy in midfield now we're talking business. Now we're not only solid at the back, you're solid there. And then for many of the reasons why Abraham was not scoring a lot of goals last year, those might become solved. Okay, so I'm happy, yes, about Chris Smalling's extension, and El Shaarawy probably looking to get extended now as well. Let's look, we analyzed Spain, Italy, just looking through my notes here. A couple players have come in, though, and one is Ndicka. Now, this is not official yet. I'm looking for my Twitter tab, if I can pull that up. I also want to talk about Rudy Garcia signing for Napoli, because that's an interesting one for sure. I don't have the picture on me right now. I know that I think Enzo posted it on Twitter, our buddy, but I'm going to pull it up in a second. What it shows is Ndicka posing for a picture with, I think, the Ivory Coast manager or somebody like that. Anyway, I'm just working on getting that for you real quick. Okay, so there we go. Thank you, Enzo, if he's in this stream or not right now. I appreciate that. So let's go to share this, and we've got Twitter. There we go. Okay, so he's posing with the jersey. It's not official yet, but he's coming. Ndicka will be here sooner or later, officially representing this club. Takes number 5, it looks like, which is good to see. And by the way, let me know if what I just did made any difference in the volume. I noticed a lot of people were coming in and out of the stream, and I wonder if that had to do with the volume. Usually people stick around a little bit longer. But Ndicka comes. Aouar has officially been declared for the club. I spoke a little bit about that in a short, but now I think it's time to talk about what is also on people's minds, which is the departure of many players, including Ben Tahirovic. And there's going to be a lot more to follow, in my opinion. If we look back at last year, one of the issues for Thiago Pinto was to clear house, was to get guys out. And if we look at the banner here, we've got some names who should be going out. Vigna, Kluivert, probably to Bournemouth, where Vigna just came from. They didn't exercise that option to keep him. Carles Perez, probably to Celta Vigo, is going to go back. And let me stop the screen. And then Volpato. This one is not done yet, but it looks like he's heading to Sassuolo. Also, Misori could be part of that. Is Fratesi included with this? I'm not so sure. I'm not confident that he's not going to Inter. That seems like the thing right now. Seems like there's a lot of steam behind that. I know that Carnevali wishes he could sell him to England for much bigger money. Berardi also looks to be leaving Sassuolo, whether he goes to Lazio or elsewhere. Let's see what develops with that. But I know that it's probably time for him to leave. And with that, they're going to look to bring in Volpato and make him a set starter, which is why I'm kind of confident that this is going to happen. But I am also reading that Roma are not satisfied with the amount of money that Sassuolo have offered for his services, as well as Misori. Why so much selling? Why does Roma keep selling these guys? Some fans are probably wondering. Because by the end of June, by the 30th of June, Roma needs to sell 30 million euros worth more of players, because they're not getting that money in from rights deals. I'm thinking that it has to impact with next year's rights deals, not getting into the Champions League, as well as sales that were probably dependent upon, like Tammy Abraham, to satisfy the balancing budget of this year. So that's why you're seeing this. It's important that Kluivert goes and that gets done quickly to Bournemouth. Just as well for Perez. Maybe that'll be about 6.5, 7 million over to Spain. That would be a good bit of business there. And then Volpato, not too sure. But the one player who did get sold today, or yesterday, I should say, is Tahirovic, who goes to Ajax for about 7.5 million euros, right? It's either 7.5 or 8.5 off the top of my head. But regardless, I think it's a good sum. I'm glad that at least it was 5 million, but to get a couple more out of Ajax, I think is a great thing. I think he's going to be a big player for them as well. There's, I think, a sell-on clause with that as well. But this is a player who Mourinho did not introduce the same way that he did with Bove, was not depending on him as much, was used more as he ran out of options because of the injury crisis with Roma. So Tahirovic's sale doesn't concern me all that much if it allows Roma to keep the players that are indispensable to this club, to keep the team healthy, and hopefully by July, when the financial year turns over again, that Roma can start to reinvest in players. Throughout history, youth products don't always pan out the way that we think they're going to do, the way that we think they are. Even like Volpato right now. I'm sure you're feeling it and you're like, I'm not too sure about letting go of Volpato. He seems like he's going to be a really big deal. And I agree with you. But when the coach doesn't want to play him and the kid's got equity and the team is in a position where they do need to bring it in, what are you left with? You're left with a sale, and hopefully you get a percentage on his future sale. So if he does go for 20, let's say Volpato goes to Fiorentina for 20 million in 3 years. Okay, so Roma get 10% of that. That's 2 million. Or they get 20%, 4 million. Whatever it might be, hopefully Volpato's sale is something which helps Roma in the big picture long term. Maybe it opens up a dialogue for Fratesi. Is that me just wishful thinking? Probably, yeah. But that's what I'm hoping so far. So Ragov's here. How are you, mate? I'm doing good, man. Doing good. I'm probably waking her up right now because she's next to me. You're gonna tap on the wall like that. Wake her up out of her nap. It's time to wake up. Karim says they're going to sell Berardi to Lazio. That's why they need Volpato. Yes, exactly. And yes, that was the president of the Ivory Coast's Football Federation that we saw there taking a picture with Ndicka. And that's a player, I'm happy to have him. Could Roma have done that if they didn't sell these youngsters? Maybe, but like I'm saying, it's something that is part of the bigger picture of raising funds and allowing this team to acquire players like Ndicka. Wouldn't you want Ndicka over an otherwise unproven talent? I would. Has that bit Roma in the past? Yeah. Look at Lorenzo Pellegrini. Look at Fratesi right now. That, of course, is a standout one. And if you don't remember, Fratesi is from Roma's academy. So that's what's going on there. And this is what you're going to see over the course of this week, heating up. And if not, definitely getting done. So today is Monday. Maybe by Sunday, I think half the names you see on this list are going to be sold. That's my intuition here. Of course, the striker debate is still open. Is Gianluca Scamacca truly an option? Is Mauro Icardi? Maybe. Is Mauro Icardi waiting for that offer from Saudi Arabia, like we see Conte going? And what's his name from Wolverhampton? Probably. Probably waiting for that big money that they're splashing. There's a couple more players that are going out to Saudi right now that are escaping me. I know Benzema is going out there, and Saudi Arabia. Let's Saudi Arabia buys soccer. Let's see what else comes up today. Oh man, this is going to be big though. Who else? Yeah, of course, Ronaldo is still there, and he was the first to kind of break the seal with that. But I'm surprised that Messi is going to Miami a little bit. So he's doing like the opposite, but I think that he's not just chasing the money either. So I don't know what Messi's. I do know what Messi's big plan is to acquire that ownership in another franchise. So maybe he's on the right track for him. But I think for these other guys who don't have such a big project lined up in their careers further down the line, I think it's, can I fault them? No, they're pros. Zaha went out to Saudi Arabia, didn't he too, from Crystal Palace? Free agent there. So nothing there. Yeah, nothing there. But $30 million a year Saudi Arabia offer, but Modric may move there as well. So, and that's something that he was said to have rejected. So maybe they increase. Maybe they give Zaha 40 million, a guy who at best was going to get, I don't know, 8 after taxes, if we could say that. It's crazy stuff. And I don't think that story is over with Saudi Arabia either yet. But by the way, did you see that video that went viral about Dybala scoring at San Jose Earthquake Stadium? Turns out it wasn't him. That's why it's important before people tweet and say, oh, it's Dybala. It wasn't him. So Ruben Neves. Yes, thank you, Karim. Ruben Neves. That was the name I was looking for. Speaking of things which look nice, I don't know. That was a weird segue. That was a strange segue. Nothing looks nice. But the Roma kits have apparently been fully leaked. I have to imagine that they're not announcing anything serious because of the deal with New Balance. And by the way, as we were talking about Tony Soprano, 10 years to the day he passed away. That's my banner on Twitter. Is Tony coming out of Satriale's pork store in Jersey. But let's look over. Well, we got other stuff to talk about, but let's look at these jerseys, man. The one thing that I'm really satisfied with them is that each jersey has a different stemma, a different logo. If we start on the left, we have the traditional Roma, the one that, when was that? 2012. That got revised from the other one, which you can still find from time to time if they're doing vintage stuff. And that's a cool cream. I can't completely tell what the print is there, but it looks like, yeah, it says ASR with a football in it, kind of like this nouveau pattern, like an arrow kind of styled. So that's the away kit there. And of course, these are Adidas. And as we look to the middle one, clean, nothing around the Lupetto. We see the SPQR, which is, I think, is going to eventually change to Toyota. That's a rumor. And the collar there is more of a, I don't want to call it a baseball collar, but what would be the right name for that? That's a sharp color, though. I'm glad that they went with a dark red and it's not bright. Some of the New Balance ones were a little bit bright for me. But then my favorite, guys, this is the one I really want, is this black. This black kit. Look at the Lupetto with the symbol around it. Not official, by the way. Not official, but hopefully close. I love the stripes up top. The dark yellow, burnt orange with it looks like almost like a beautiful sunset, does it not? In those stripes. Just so clean. I got a bunch of comments here. Somebody wrote, there goes $400. Yeah. All sweet. Definitely getting the white and red. My mom said it's a nice souvenir. Yeah. That's my mom. I like how some of the Addy Club points and coupons ready to incorporate. Okay, yeah, Addy Club. That's a good point from Ben Clemens there. I don't know if those are going to be limited edition or long term. Well, they're there for this season, but past that, they change every year. But that black is definitely going to be a rare one when you want to definitely want to get your hands on that. Yeah, like this person said here, the cream looks pretty cool too, and I like that a lot. Let's go back to my page, though, because there's a couple other things I wanted to point out via Twitter today. It was the anniversary of the Scudetto, which just happened 22 years ago, I think. And Totti wrote, non finirà mai, will never end. And also, Totti played in a charity match recently. He had some pretty good plays, some excellent through balls. He even made an assist to Usain Bolt. And there we've got Chris coming back. And this awesome map, I don't know if you came across this on Twitter, of Italian football. And sorry, let me go back to the Zoom. You can actually buy this. If you go to my Twitter, it's in the link. Come on, let me zoom. There we go. I mean, so many different clubs. I'm not sure if this spans like throughout all of Italian football. I'm pretty sure. I mean, even if you look at into Genoa, I'm not sure what that club here is with the Scandinavian-ish flag there. Almost looks like a Norwegian flag. But then you see in Roma on the left there. It's hard to see on the map itself. But the detail of this is just truly superb. By the way, my favorite symbol after Roma's is Pescara. Sorry, I just zoomed out of it. But the dolphin. I love that one. One of my favorite animals, by the way, in case you're ever wondering. It was just Father's Day. So if you want to get me a gift, I like dolphins. But yeah, super cool stuff there. Let's get out of that now And I think there was one or two more things I wanted to talk about that I posted here. Yeah, Fratesi. Yeah. By the way, Dan Friedkin, the owner of the club, has been flying his plane around. They're doing something with the club, like an air show in Rome, and it's made the newspapers. But he's got, I think, a Mustang, somebody said, World War II era plane. And speaking of back to where we started this episode tonight, back to Cristante's renewal. Look at the amount of matches this guy plays. So if you see on your right there, 90, 90, 90, and this is just this season. This looks like 2 years worth of games. This is just 2022, 2023 season with a handful. Actually, there's no games for Italy here, not one. And you can see just how important he's been to Mourinho. And maybe one game he comes on as a sub. It's crazy, man. 2 games. And this is the second page of this season from Verona starting in February down to Italy's last match, which was yesterday against Netherlands for the 3rd place in the Nations League, which they won. Yippee. Great. And that's just from February 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 matches since February 19th. So how many matches since February? What did I just say? 20. It's profound, man. I don't know when he rests. Like, when do you live your life, man? When do you sit back and just enjoy? I don't think he does. I think the man is all work. But there we go. That's running around the Roma universe right now. And like I said before, I think Volpato is the next to leave. Tahirovic 20. Oh, it was 8.5 million. And Misori, who's 19 years old, will probably be part of the Fratesi deal. Let's look at also the rumors about Mourinho calling Verratti. Do I believe this? Not for a second. That this happened in the way that they said. Did he maybe send him a text like, yo, if you're looking to get out of PSG, I know they're selling Neymar, Messi left, Mbappe's probably going to leave. If you want to get out, I got an option for you. Maybe. That I could see it happening. They're even saying, oh, now he said, it's not going to happen, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't want to go. All right. Like, where does this story come from? But it's pretty cool to think about. I give it that I was interested. I can't lie, because Verratti is one of my guys I like. I don't want to say he's one of my favorite players, but out of like 30 players active in football, he's one of them for sure. Looking back at one of the points of this episode today, though, is let's look at players who have high value, who don't play a lot, and can probably be out. So Roma's highest valued player is Tammy. He's, of course, injured, has just torn his ACL, and that market value has probably gone in half after that. Pellegrini, he's not being sold. Dybala, not being sold, and that's a whole different thing because of the clauses in his contract. And that brings us to 24-year-old Roger Ibanez. And according to Transfer Market, says he's worth about 30 million euros. And given that Roma's in such a financial hole, you got to start to wonder what's going to happen there. We're going to rule out Bryan Cristante. Just signed a long-term deal. And we look at somebody else here. And I don't know how this is going to make fans feel. But it's Nikola Zalewski. And he is, how old? 21 now. Didn't have a great season. Not great. Not wonderful. In fact, it looked like his first season, where he was 19 and 20 years old, were a bit better. He played the World Cup. Yes, I understand that. And he was tired. He played a lot of matches this year. However, when you really want to look at what Roma can do and what they should do, you see a player who could probably be sold for around 30 million euros. One which could finance not one quality, but probably 2 quality players. A 2-for-1. And you got to wonder what you would really have to do if you put yourself in Thiago Pinto's shoes. And I'm going to let that bake a little bit here. I want you to write in your comments about what you think about that. We're already 35 minutes in. I can't believe that. It's been a good episode so far. We've covered a lot of ground. So just recapping on some comments from Ragav. Yes, so Verratti, I don't think any substance. Roma is an island? No. I don't know what you mean by that. Roma is a city which is inland on the Tiber River. It's not Coastal. Marco is here. Buongiorno, Marco. He says, how many forward passes has he made? He's not Roma caliber. Matic at 36 is twice the player. Well, I have to say that for Cristante, he offers a lot. Maybe forward passes are not his thing, but he can occasionally pick out the right pass. I think he provides a lot of balance. He can play the simple ball, which is sometimes an underrated aspect of his game. He's got a good brain on him more times than not. I think he has grown a lot, and Mourinho depends on him. Luis says, let's get a striker. We're talking about player value now. I think I mentioned 6 months ago when I said Jose devalues player by playing anti-football. I can't wait for this conversation. Christian says, I think we need to add some likes. Thank you, Christian. Yeah, 11 people in here. Let's go. Get those likes up. Come on, please. Click it. Help this channel grow. Buongiorno. Michael Bibic says, what's up, Michael? And I appreciate you guys jumping in on comments after as well. I see everyone coming in, and that's been really good. But back to Zalewski. If I'm looking at this situation, I bring in, and I'm Thiago Pinto. I'm going to be totally honest with you that what I'm going to do is I'm going to sell Zalewski because of Roma's delicate situation, because they are not qualifying for Champions League. That's at least 50 less than they would have made, because Tammy Abraham's not going to be sold, which it seems like was inevitable. Now we're talking around 100 million euros that Roma has less, and you got to get it from somewhere. And Thiago Pinto has now, yes, gone to the books to get rid of Tahirovic, to sell Tahirovic. He got a good sum out of that, to sell Volpato, Misori, Justin Kluivert, Viña. Am I forgetting anybody off the top of my head? Viña, and Carles Perez, which should get around 7.5 million euros, maybe 7, a little bit left. And you look at Zalewski, and with all of that combined, maybe with Volpato, you might get 11 tops. So that's around 20 there. When you combine for Misori, around 22. And hopefully that satisfies the June 30th deadline. But looking further, if you sell Zalewski for 30, don't worry about his wages. I don't want to bring that in. Zalewski's on low wages. You reinvest and you approach Empoli for Parisi or the Brazilian left back who was mentioned today. I'll get you his name real quick. I'll be honest, I never heard of him before. I wasn't familiar with this link. And his name is Ayrton Lucas. And the reports are that Roma has ready to offer about 12 million euros. And he plays for Flamengo in Brazil. Class of 97. I'm 33. That would mean he's about 27 years old. Yeah, he played 34 times last night, scored 6 goals, made 5 assists in Brazil. Maybe this is an answer, a solution. Maybe if Spinazzola goes, I don't know. I don't know about bringing this guy in. But one thing I do know is that with Zalewski, another issue was what was his best position, because at left back, he wasn't good enough. At left winger, I don't know that he scores well enough. In Mourinho's defensive 3-5-2, I don't know that you're ever going to see the best out of Zalewski. If Zalewski cannot attack space and he cannot get forward as much as he wants to, then you're kind of cutting his legs off from underneath him. Yes, as Marco will tell you, because of Mourinho's tactics, I just think that Zalewski is not an ideal left winger or left wing back or left forward in Mourinho's style of play. Could he score others? Could he play for other bosses and be great? Yeah, probably. Could he go to England and be very good? I think so. So Michael says we should keep Zalewski up. We should, or just keep in general. And I think so too. But when it comes down to it, and I'm trying to think of how to reinvest in the squad, 30 million euros starts to sound really tasty. Christian says, do you think we could piece together 30 million in sales? Just made 8.5. Yeah, with Kluivert, let's say Kluivert comes for 10. That's 18.5. Viña should fetch at least 10. So right there with Perez, should surely be over 30. You lose a little bit of bargaining power with other clubs because they know that Roma has to sell. But he says, you answered as I typed. Okay. Luis is here, and he says, if the Tottenham manager doesn't like Udogie, to get him on loan would be great. Feel like we desperately need some pace and power in this team. Wouldn't mind Single on the other side. I love Udogie, and he's a good player to bring up. That would be probably something for next season. So in a similar way that we see Scamacca now not fitting into West Ham. From what I understand, they're already looking at a different center forward. So that situation seems to be that Scamacca will move on, whether it's to Roma, Milan, or whoever. And Marco says it's because Pinto doesn't have any other players to sell who holds value. No Roma players worth more than 15 million aside from Dybala. As I said, I love this talk. And we're kind of saying the same thing, Marco and I, in that you look at who does have value, and it's not too many players in Roma's team. Let's look back real quick. And somebody mentioned Singo just now. Singo, I love Wilfried Singo. Also plays for Ivory Coast. I don't know if Roma can lose another player with Ndicka and Aouar when it comes time for AFCON, because at that point, be gutting the team. But let's take a look back. Mancini not going anywhere. Is a vice captain on this team. Diego Llorente, Roma's going to try to get him back from what I understand. I like that a lot. Spinazzola, another guy who I could see leave. Am I saying I think he's going to leave or he should leave? No, I'm saying I could see it because of the financial situation. Selic, it's not that worth that much money. Came, played decent enough first season, nothing else there. Kamara goes back on loan to Olympiacos. Bove should not be sold, most likely will not be sold. Wijnaldum goes back to Paris Saint-Germain. Goodbye. Chris Smalling just signed a new contract. Belotti, I don't think is going anywhere. Kumbula out with an meniscus tear, right? Meniscus tear. Rick Karsdorp, maybe, but not really all that valuable. Was it not just one, but two ACL tears for Rick Karsdorp? Rui Patricio, not worth much. El Shaarawy, who should be re-signing this week, if not tomorrow, not worth much. Matic, Slovakian, and that's it. And then you start to head into the youngsters here. But one thing I want to point out, though, is how transfer market is not the end-all, be-all. Is look at the value they gave to Tahirovic, 1.5 million. He was just sold for 7.5 or 8.5, right? One of those. So a lot of times transfer market does not take into consideration the dynamics of the situation, like the emotional factor or the prospect factor. And that Tahirovic is a guy who played under Mourinho, had a couple decent shifts, is a big player, plays a position that not too many players want to do anymore, which is a true defensive midfielder. And now he's off to Ajax, where he's going to do good. He's definitely going to do good. I think it's good business by both teams. 26.3 Roma's average age as well, something to keep an eye on. I think they're going to continue to look to lessen that, in my opinion. So Aouar is still 24. Ndicka is a young guy too. So that's really hopeful as well. And I'm happy to see that. Let's go back to some comments real quick here. Christian says, I'd like to see Singo as well. Yes. Do you know something about Ndicka, what kind of player he is? Yeah, good shout there. Thanks, Data. So Ndicka is somebody who could play in a back four or a back three. In fact, he is the center back in the Bundesliga who has scored the most goals since the past 5 seasons. He's tied with another player. I think it's 10 goals and 7 assists, which is the most points and goals for any center back in the Bundesliga. He's really good one-on-one. He obviously, given those goal stats, loves to get into the action on the corners and stuff, loves to get up. He's really athletic, smart in his man marking. So this, to me, is a coup by Pinto. If, let's say, worst case scenario, Ndicka doesn't work out, he's still signed on a free 5-year deal. Somebody's going to pick him up. Let's say, and I don't think that it is going to be bad. I think it's going to work out for Roma. I do think the Ndicka deal is a great one, and one that only a player like that buys into the whole thing, that buys into the ownership and says that this is going to be something big, is going to take on this type of team, one that's in the Europa League, one that, as we see, does not have the best, most valuable players in the world. So for a young player to come in and join this project means a lot. It means that the project that they had given him, that they have laid out for him and in front of his agent, was convincing and seemed legitimate. And that, I think, is a really good point, a really good thing for the fans ahead of the next season, ahead of the transfer market. And sometimes, guys, just keeping your players together like Smalling, Cristante, and El Shaarawy means more than, whatever transfer from whatever random transfer. So sometimes continuity weighs heavily than we might anticipate. So Marcus says Tahirovic for 10 million is a scam, of course, and everyone knows it. Why scam? What do you mean scam? Why are we scamming? It's fair, right? He played a couple of games, almost 10 million. I think it's fair, don't you, Marco? Come on. Whose team are you on here? Anyway, Rudy Garcia's Napoli. Let's talk about Rudy Garcia for a second. So let's look at the team that he used to play with for Roma, because that was a really impressive one. And what this could mean for Napoli. Just a couple minutes. I'm not going to go on a whole, this is not the Napoli show all of a sudden. But let's look at that midfield that he had. Strootman, Pjanic, De Rossi. Man, what a squad. And then Florenzi. This is pre-ACL tear Florenzi when he was still actually good. Yeah, I said that. Francesco Totti playing the false nine. And then Gervinho. Sometimes Gervinho would play on the left, if I remember correctly. I think this is a little bit, I think this needs to be flip-flopped. Gervinho played on the left. Florenzi would make those deep runs to the right, which is actually the way that I like to play right wing. Instead of taking players one-on-one, I like to take the ball down to the end line and then cross in from my forward. But we see that team here, and that was really impressive, man. For Rudy Garcia's benefit, I will say he lost Castan, which was major when he went out with the brain issue, as well as Iturbe. When Roma signed Iturbe and what's his name? Oh, my gosh. My favorite DS. Oh, my gosh. What is his name? Cigarette smoke. Walter Sabatini signed Iturbe. What they later found out was he had hairline fractures in his back. I think it was his back. So we never saw the Iturbe from Verona, who was excellent, who took players 1v1, was swift, very hard to stop, could get a shot off. That player was excellent. And then Juan Cuadrado ends up going to Juventus after his tenure with Fiorentina. And Roma miss out. Another player that was part of that cycle that Roma were looking at was also Alessio Cerci. So I guess Cuadrado was the best of the three there. And Cerci would have been cool, but doesn't happen. And then, of course, with Iturbe, the rest is history. So did Rudy Garcia get the fairest of shots? I don't think so. And I think that he is a good manager. He's been on a little bit of a world tour since he managed Roma. And I think that he can do good stuff with Kvaratskhelia. But even if Kvara moves on, which I kind of am getting the impression of eventually he will do, you still got Raspadori. You still have Osimhen for now. You got Chucky Lozano, who just signed long-term. Right wing, or Chucky Lozano signed long-term? I'm sorry, no. Diego Simeone's son signed long-term. And then on the right, yeah, you still got Chucky. And I know there's another right winger there. If Politano, yes. In center midfield, you're still going to have the same guys that they've had. Maybe Zalewski moves on. But I think that he can do a really good job with Napoli. Their defense should stay the same with the exception of Kim. And they're definitely going to bring some guys in. They just made a lot of money. Okay, I'm looking through these comments. Ajax is not stupid. They're good at scamming other clubs on the road, says. That Ajax scouting system, probably the best in the world. They were the ones who innovated before anyone else. They were using heart rate monitors. They were looking at the kids in different ways and analyzing who would truly be the best. And it's by no mistake that just a few years ago, they got to the Champions League final. That's the final, right? Who'd they lose to? Ajax Champions League final. Or did they only get to the semi where they lost against Tottenham, right? Which the 1995. Yeah, so maybe that was the semifinal where they lost against Tottenham. Anyone want to fact check me on that? I would appreciate that. They're not cooking the books, Marco. Where are you getting this from? It's legit, especially not anymore. I don't think anyone's going to be cooking the books for a while. Yeah, that Inter was a really cool team, Leo. Financian and Tahirovic, Jose, and Pinto made 17.5 mil appearances from thin air. It's a good sign for a club that can do that, especially after only a couple appearances from each player. Michael, thank you. That was Tottenham. They almost got there. I think it was in the end moments. And that, as much as Rocco comes in here once in a while, and I get it, there were a couple bad buys. Eldor Shomorodov, and there's a couple on top of that. Were not good purchases. There's somebody big who I was thinking of. That went along with Shomorodov that came in under Pinto's first tenure. I'm trying to remember that one off the top of my head. But Yeah, he's failed on a couple of occasions, but one big job of his has been to clear out so much dead wood. If we look back, like Robin Olsen, Paul Lopez, guys are still on the books. Florenzi, get rid of them once and for all. And it's a bit of a different challenge this year, right? With not just clearing out the dead wood like Kluivert and Perez, but actually getting good deals for youngsters. And that's a whole different ballgame because you're valuing them not based on the past, but on what could be of the future. And how do you use that when you have so little precedent, so little example for to say, oh, these guys are going to be that, they're going to be this, they're worth this. How do you achieve that? You got to be a really good negotiator. So Reynolds, who's actually been doing pretty good. I think in the Belgian league, Reynolds did quite well. And Viña, who did well out at Bournemouth and definitely upheld his value. So maybe Roma actually makes a little plus Valenza off Viña if he doesn't end up staying. By the way, guys, I'm going to post, since we were speaking about James Gandolfini today, I have a little link where Dominic Chiesa played Uncle June. He played Junior. So I'm going to post that link for you here if you want to check it out in the comments real quick. And that was really touching. Just so sad, man, when you look at him. But it's definitely worth watching. So I just posted that in the comments right now. All right, guys. If you do head out, we're almost an hour in. Crazy to think about that. Leave a like. Send it to your Romanisti pals. If you want the chat to our group too, I'm going to post it here. We've got a good little chat going on. A bunch of people. Let's see if I can. We got 25 people now. That's really great. Invite group via link. Copy link. There we go. And that link is now in the comments as well. I think we covered just about everything. Let me double check the news real quick. Salik played in the Euro 2024 qualifiers against Wales, which they won 2-0. It's rumored that it's not just Delta Vigo who's in for Carles Perez, who Kolarov just became the sporting director of Pisa, which I thought was pretty cool. If you've ever been out to Pisa, it's a beautiful town in Tuscany, and they've got their own little stadium. Of course, the Leaning Tower is beautiful as well. I think that's just about it, guys. Anything else? Nuno Santos went out to lunch with Jose Mourinho. They're on vacation in Setúbal, I think, which is in Portugal, if I'm not incorrect. So, okay, back to the Azzurri. Let me know what you think about that too. Let me know what you think about the incoming players like Ndicka and Awad, the outgoing players. What's going on in Saudi Arabia? Because that's really going to change the game of football for this summer as well. And going forward, I don't think that's something that's going to end soon. And I thank you guys for joining today. Leave love. Let me know what you think, even if it's after the broadcast. So, yeah, all of Tuscany is amazing for sure. Definitely worth checking out, guys. And we'll be talking soon once we get enough info. I don't want to do little videos each day that are like 10, 20 minutes where I'm just talking about the same nonsense. But once we get a lot of news together, then we'll do live streams. Otherwise, I'll keep doing shorts as well. So the YouTube channel's not dormant. It'll stay active, posts and all that stuff. Check me out on Twitter, Instagram as well. So we'll talk soon. If you've got any guests that you think should be on the show, let me know. I should have a couple cool people, including an ex-Roma Primavera product. So we'll have that coming as well. Hopefully Christine Cupo will be on the channel within the week or two. We'll take it from there. Ciao, guys. Thank you.